Hello everyone and welcome to the Math Bender by Adnan Zaidi. Today we'll discuss what angles are and its types. We'll look into it and some other questions as well. So first step, in order to understand what angles are, they are just when two lines meet, they form an angle. So for example, when two lines meet, they form an angle. The opening between those two lines is called the angle. Let's name this thing A, B, and C. I've named this point A, this point B, and this point C. So this is the angle. It could have been this way as well. A, B, C. Now there are two lines which are crossing each other, and there are many angles that you may see. One, two, three, and the fourth one. We'll see how we represent. So when we are to represent any mathematical angle, so we use the term, we use this symbol, and it represents angle. It could be, questions could ask you more of other jargons they may use, but basic, we use this sign to represent an angle. So for example, if I have to refer to this angle here, then I'll say either angle A, B, C. I could also use this cap sign, which means that I'm referring to angle B, which is in the center. I could use this sign. So any any of these angles that you see, they may be represented like this. This is how they are represented. Now, looking at the type of angles, then we will get back on how we can find more angles in it. So there are many type of angles that you may know. The first angle that you need to know is a right angle. Now I'm using the symbol instead. A right angle looks like this. Now notice that it has a square, a small square, which represents that it is a right angle. Now this represents that it has to be equals to 90 degrees, and all the other angles will make this as a reference. So acute angle are less than 90 degrees, and they look like this. The inner of those aperture of those two lines, it could be like this as well. So we refer to them as acute angles. The next one is obtuse angle. They are more than 90 but less than 180 degrees. They are referred to as like this or like this. So note that if we try to relate with 90 degrees, one has opening less than that and one has an opening more than that. That's how the angles are defined. By just looking at them, you can identify. Then we have straight angle. We also refer to them as a straight line. They are 180 degrees. And the last one is a reflex angle, which is referred to as like this. Now, this is where we try to look again at point B here. You can see that there was an internal angle that we were looking at before, and now we are calling this as well as B. So, how do we identify or how do we name them if a situation like this occurs? So, when we are to talk about the internal angle between A, B, and C, we say that acute angle A, B, C. This automatically means that you're talking about the internal angle that is there. And if you're talking about the red one, then we say a reflex angle A, B, C. This is how we create a difference between them. Now, there could be many other angles, and the same way you can represent them. So, let's look at more angles that are there. So, we have complementary angles, and which is, so let's say, now if I draw a line between 90-degree angles, and we can say that it is now divided into this angle A and this angle B. Initially, this looks like this angle, 90 degree. But now I further divided, irrespective of the fact of how I have divided them, of their ratio. But I can say that if I add both A and B, they will be equals to 90 degree. And this is what a complementary angle is. So a complementary angle is two angles when they sum up to 90 degrees. That's a complementary angle. And the same way we have when two angles have a sum of which is equals to 180 degree. If I divide a straight line, and I can say A plus B is equals to 180 degrees. This is called supplementary angles. Now, moving on to a transversal. So let's say if we have two lines here, now this representation, as you can see that there are two, I put two arrows on two separate lines. So whenever you see a representation like this, or a representation with two arrows on each line, they represent parallel lines. And if I cross a third line, then it represents a transversal. Now, representing a transversal will create more angles. So let's try to look at more angles that we get to see. We get to see this angle A, let's call it angle A, this angle B, this angle C, angle D, E, F, G, and H. So two parallel lines, when they're cut by the third line, we call it a transversal. So let's see if we can further look at that. Okay, so more angles related to transversal. So vertically opposite angles. So when you talk about vertically opposite angles, then try to see this. Now, if you see a structure like this, where two lines make a cross or an X, then the opposite angles, for example, in this scenario, A and B, they are equal. And C and D, they are as well equal, respectively. Now, by the way, the same applies on E and H, G and F as well. I just gave you one example. So now, looking at another one, alternate angles. Alternate angles create a Z, and you may look at them like this. Now, I can see now anything that comes in the folds of Z like this, the condition is that these two lines have to stay parallel. Only then we call this angle is equals to this angle. Now in this scenario, in the left side, you can see that B and E, so B is equals to E. I can say that angle B is equals to angle E. It's not only that, we can also try to see that angle C, that Z could be otherwise as well. We can also say that angle C is equals to angle G. So if you want to remember them, then these are the shapes that you may look into. It could be like this. That's why we try to remember it, that if it is a Z of any sort or N, so they represent alternate angles. The next one is corresponding, and they represent f like this, f like this, could be f like this. The only condition for all these three angles has to be that there has to be two parallel lines, and you are referring to both the parallel lines when you're looking for these angles. So now if I have to construct and check which one is it, then I can say that now here, as you can see, that this f is like this, and the folds are C and F. So you can say C is equals to F, angle C is also equals to F, or the same way angle B is equals to angle H. So there are many ways you can try to construct this, but the condition is that it has to be parallel. Now, looking at some of the example questions that are here, so if you look at this one, what is the name for the marked angle? So now if you see the marked angle, that is this one, you will name it, if you only write DCA, sorry, if you only write DAC, let's try to look at it here. This is what it is. And if you try to look at DAC, then we can say that DAC is not only like only here. It is as well. So DAC, this here is acute, but the outer one is reflex. But since the marked angle is inside, so we say that it is acute angle DAC. Now what is the relationship between angle A and angle B? Now let's look at this one. As you can see, that is a straight line on which angle A and B are falling. And if I say that angle A here angle A and angle B, if I add both of them, it adds up to 180. So I can say A plus B is equals to 180 degrees, hence they are supplementary. Now looking at these angles, what is the relationship? So now what the first thing that you could do is just try to look for your thing. If you see that they are vertically opposite angles, because both are opposite to each other and making an X. So A is equals to B, and they are vertically opposite. The last one is, what is the relationship between angle A and B? And as you could see that this is a straight line making it a 180 degree angle, but here it is, as you could see with the square box, it's a 90 degree. So rest of the other is going to be a 90 degree as well. So I can also say A plus B is equals to 90 degrees, and hence they are complementary angles. That's it for now. We will discuss more in our next lecture, more questions related to what angles are. Thank you. Take care. Bye.